Sony's first lens this year is a 16-35 f4G, but this one's got a few tricks up its sleeve. First of all, it's a power zoom, but if we put that aside for just a moment, it's still an absolutely tiny lens for an ultra-wide-angle zoom. There already is a Sony Zeiss version of the 16-35 f4 in the lineup, but this G version doesn't replace that. This is the superior offering to that from what I understand. Officially, Sony does position the G line above the Zeiss line, so it does make sense that they didn't discontinue the 16-35ZA with the launch of this G version. Now I understand a 16-35 f4 might not be something you would find in the dream lens category, but neither was I expecting a version of it to achieve this level of refinement. Sony really did a fantastic job with this lens. This is the world's lightest constant f4 wide-angle power zoom. It's only a little over 350 grams, which to put things into perspective is almost impossibly light for a lens of this caliber. The Zeiss version weighed about 520 grams, it did not have power zoom, and is optically inferior compared to the G. You will see a stark difference in corner resolution if we compare the two head-to-head. This new G version also suppresses focus breathing crazily well. This sample was shot on the A7S III, so no breathing compensation. There's so little breathing, it's almost completely unnoticeable, which is an instant value add for use cases involving video. But as far as video is concerned, this might as well be the perfect gimbal lens. It's small, light, ultra-wide, but most importantly, you can change your focal lengths without having to rebalance your gimbal because the zoom is entirely internal. I tested with a balanced freestanding gimbal powered off, and the weight redistribution when zooming is so minimal it will never affect your balance. This little package is also packing a total of 6 linear XD motors, 4 of which are dedicated to the zoom mechanism. This is the first time Sony is using the prized XD linear motors to drive a power zoom, and the great track record of the motors do carry over. Zoom operation is perfectly silent and there's zero vibration from the motors. The biggest advantage of a power zoom is the lens's ability to zoom itself, or less supernaturally phrased, is your ability to zoom it without physically having to rotate its zoom ring. If you're used to operating the camera with your hands around it, then it probably sounds like a completely unnecessary feature, but in certain use cases, it does present itself as a major convenience. Consider you have the option to remotely operate the zoom. Think something like an overhead camera mounted out of reach, and you can tweak the zoom using one of Sony's wireless remotes or simply using the Imaging Edge mobile app. But even for hands-on operation, the ergonomics of this new lens is superbly well thought out. There is still a zoom ring, but there's also a continuously variable zoom rocker on the side of the lens. With just your left hand on the lens barrel, the controls fall perfectly under your fingers. You've got a finger for the focus ring, one for the zoom ring, your thumb's right at the zoom rocker, and with another finger you can still reach the iris ring, which in typical G-lens fashion can be declicked. Also, despite being a zoom by wire, the zoom ring still operates rather naturally because it does have a linear response. The only odd feeling is just how it doesn't have hard stops as you hit the 16 or 35 end. And if you like to watch the world burn, you even have the option to reverse the direction of the zoom ring. For what this lens is capable of, I'm sure many would have wished it was something brighter than an f4. When I first held it, I too thought that way, but having used it for a bit, let me just put it this way. For this lens to be able to offer the amount of value it does, it has to be an f4. This lens is very much defined by its mobility, so as much as we've been spoilt by big bright primes, there is no denying how useful a lens like this could be. And that's it for my thoughts on the very first Sony lens of the year. If you enjoyed this review, perhaps check out some of my other ones.